All right, so welcome back once again. And today we will be covering the U.S. Industrial Revolution, sometimes known as the Gilded Age. Okay, the era here will be this 30-year period between the 1870s and 1900. Main hype, trending news mostly related to immigration, people coming from all over the world to get factory jobs. And there you have it. Also, the Spanish-American War will occur during this time period, and there will be some effects of that will rub off on the country. And again, everything related to industry or factory lifestyle, that's the technology. Okay, we'll talk about all of these politicians later, but we will cover a few key terms here. The first, pull factor, something that attracts you to an area. A push factor makes you want to leave an area. Okay, so I might move to Colorado. There's good jobs up there. That's a pull factor. I got to leave Mississippi. I don't like the mosquitoes. That's a push factor. Now, this bottom term is important for juniors to understand. Y'all have to be aware, before the U.S. Industrial Revolution, in other words, before factories, people made stuff by hand. There was no such thing as mass production. Okay, people who made things and sold them had to do it all by hand. They could only make so many per day. Therefore, they could only make so much money per day. But once factories become a reality and we have mass production, you can make like 10,000 items a day. Your pockets are going to get boosted a little bit. Okay, you're going to make some money from this development. So that's one definition for industry. It means factories, machinery, the ability to mass produce. It could also mean whatever market or field of work someone is in, like, Nike is in the shoe industry, and, Aquafina is in the, the bottled drink industry, I guess. I don't know. But you see what I'm saying, all right? And so during this industrial age, this factory time setting, we sometimes refer to this as the Gilded Age, meaning that it is golden, but only on the outside, like the edges of a Bible. Okay, it looks gold. You see those pages. Oh, it's gold. You flip it open, just paper. Okay, that's gilded. And this describes America during the late 1800s to foreigners, to immigrants, to people who don't live in America. They think, man, that place looks great. I want to move to the golden land of America. But when they get here, it is not golden. Okay, so we call it the Gilded Age. Okay. Some of this stuff we don't need, but we'll start here, okay? So most of the industry, these factories, these centers where we mass produce things, are mostly located in the Northeast, New York City, Pennsylvania, up that way. And so the northern economy is a lot stronger now from industrialization. Also, they are building cities using industry, something that the South was not yet really doing. Most stuff was still built by hand a little bit. And if you need the visionary tactic, there it is. The Northeast, that's where, and by the way, the darker red, the more industry they have. Okay, so cities used to look like this. But then during the industrial age, after urbanization, they look like this. You see the use of, heavy machinery. You see the use of electric street carts, things like that. These folks thought they were living in the future. Look, you couldn't build this by hand. I mean, you could, but, you're asking for an accident to happen. The thing gonna collapse. All right, so you get the idea. Industry. So some good things about industry. There's now electricity. Used to, the work day only lasted till sundown because you couldn't see because it wasn't any light. When the sun went down, the work day ended. But now with electricity, we have light bulbs. You can work all night. So this is going to transform business in America. It also gives us things like running water, paved streets, closed sewage system, and a better GDP, a better economy. GDP just means how much money your country is worth. And the better you do it, the more it is. All right, so moving along to the kinds of industry. Some bad stuff. It pollutes. And in the late 1800s, lots of poor working conditions existed. Hot, hard places to work, sweatshops they're called, and child labor. That's right, folks. Children were working in factories. Should have been in school. They're working in the factory, okay? We're going to skip the state test questions. You'll need to be here in person for that. But we will discuss immigration, okay? Now, when these jobs open up, all these factories get built, and these jobs open up, guess what? Folks from overseas are going to come to the U.S. just to get these jobs. They're attracted to the Northeast due to the jobs. They like the U.S. government. They like the idea of it. You know, maybe they're not free back home. Maybe they can't find a job back home in Western Europe across the Atlantic Ocean. Let's talk more. Okay, these are just a few countries. You see a lot of these. You see a lot of people with these backgrounds in the Northeast. Okay, and again, they are coming from this part of the world. Well, you can't see that. They're coming from Western Europe across the Atlantic to the Northeast. Okay, and again, jobs and better life is the main attraction. Okay, so here we go. Just what I was saying. What might make these people want to leave their own country? Cruel governments, no food, too many people, not enough money. Maybe the government took their land for agriculture or road development. You know, why would they come to the U.S.? You know, why not Germany? Why not Switzerland? Well, they wanted a better government. U.S. was also going through the Industrial Revolution. Main thing is better employment, better standard of living, better justice system, and bottom line, better life. Okay, and the ride over was not a fun ride. You can see that it was very cramped, very crowded. Some of these people spent their life savings to get this ticket on this rinky-dink boat just to get to the U.S. But nonetheless, there you have it. Okay. And you can see that New York here was very crowded very, very quickly. Okay. About 12,000 immigrants came to New York every day. That's a lot during this time period. And they landed at Ellis Island, where the Statue of Liberty is. Roughly a 5-week boat trip. And when you saw the statue, you knew I'm here. I'm at my new home in the United States. You're happy. Okay. Now, regardless of their race, background, ethnicity, whatever, most immigrants were treated badly by American citizens, even the government. Xenophobia, they call it, when you don't like immigrants. Okay, so some of this xenophobia could be seen. The government made sure to check everyone before they came in. They had stations, and when you get off the boat, you had to be background checked. You had to pay money. You had to be checked for disease. It's a very busy place. They would mark you for things. Is your heart working? Are your legs working? Are you lame? I know that means something different now, but back in the day, lame meant your legs didn't work. X. Are you crazy? Do you have a mental illness? Is something else wrong? You get the idea. They want to make sure, by the way, all of this stuff is in order so you can work. Okay, without these things, you can't really work. Just something I noticed moving along. Okay, a lot of prejudice and xenophobia came. A lot of Americans had this fear. Whether it's true or false, a lot of people felt this way. These immigrants will take jobs, take my wife, and take up space. They'll just take over my neighborhood and turn this into their own country. That was kind of the xenophobic fear that people had. So keep that in mind as we study the rest of this unit. And some effects of immigration. The cities got very overcrowded. 12,000 people a day. Cities will begin to grow. There was also increased competition in the workforce. You want to get a job, right? Well, so do 11,999 other immigrants in the city. Get it? People were prejudiced against them. There was a crime rate uptick. The cost of rent and the cost of living went up. If something becomes rare, or hard to get, what happens to the price on it, class? That's right. It goes up. That includes rent, groceries, and everything else, man. All right. So there's also an increase in disease and pollution. And you get these things called political bosses. Not necessarily an effect of immigration, but they feed on immigration. We'll discuss that later. Okay. Here's just some imagery. I want to say this is Jacob Reese, but don't quote me on that. He's a photographer. The idea here of these photos are to really show you just how crowded and unsanitary everything was. Ooh, yikes. Okay. You know, they live here. This is like a studio apartment. That whole family probably lives here. Okay. So it was very, very crowded. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, we'll skip the questions. You got to be in person for that. Let's talk about the workplace conditions. We've seen the city. We've seen the living conditions that these people had to face. Let's talk about workplace conditions. Hot, nasty, dangerous, hard work, what we call a sweatshop. Okay, and one of the most common types of workers that you might find in a sweatshop in the 1800s are kids, children. That's right. Now, you might say, why would you hire a child? That's crazy. Well, think about it. You don't have to pay them much. You can tell them anything and they'll believe it. Okay. You can manipulate them, right? And also the worst, they can fit inside a machine and fix it for you. Cause I'm not going to crawl my fat body in there and get stuck. And then that machine turns on and I'm dead. I'll just let little Johnny do it. That was the attitude, right? Workplace conditions continued. Again, child labor was in effect with these sweatshops. Today it is illegal, but I think some places might allow it. You might have to Google that yourself, okay? We don't allow it in the U.S., but hey, do your own research about the rest of the world, okay? Look at that. No shoes, no hard hat, baggy shirt. If that shirt got stuck in that roller, little Johnny is going for the ride of his life through that machine. All right. Anyway, look at this. These kids are like hard. Look, I would not fight these children. Look, I'm 35 and my gosh, this guy in front looks older than me. All right. So let's continue here. All right. Now, when the work conditions get so bad that even the workers can't stand it and even outsiders can't stand it, like, oh, they shouldn't do those workers like that. What you get is a labor union. And it's a group of workers that get together and protest the boss. That's the basic way to say it. They protect workers from unfair practices. They do boycotts, they do strikes, they do a number of things until eventually, like, I don't want to say scared, but employers kind of got scared of labor unions. Like they realized there was power in labor unions and they attract attention. Okay. So labor unions were just workers' rights groups, you might say, that fought for better working conditions, better pay, things like that. Okay. So keep that term in mind. Now, there were these characters who kind of preyed on the immigrants. They were usually someone who was in a city position, like they had some political office, you know, alderman or something like that. And this is just an example, but this is what would happen. Okay, we call these people political bosses, but they're a kingpin. And what they would do is this: the immigrants would get off the boats, right? And they would open a business or get a job, or they're looking for a job, okay? And these political bosses, these kingpins, will approach the new immigrant and say, hey, you're new in this neighborhood. You're looking for a job, right? Well, I can get you a job with the city, but the deal is you and your whole household have to vote for me in the next election. So I'd love to have your support, okay? Well, if you vote for him, he'll get you that job. Okay, he's controlling votes. He's using immigrants and cheap labor to keep himself in power. That's a political boss. The most famous one is Boss Tweed, William Tweed. We'll get there later. Another thing political bosses did was extort. You open up a business in their neighborhood as an immigrant. They show up the first day. Hey, every Friday, you're going to give me $400 out that register or else. Okay, you could refuse, but they're going to kill you and get away with it because they done paid the police. Things like this. It's just all corruption. Okay, moving along. And again, just a list of kind of things political bosses did to stay in power. They bribed the police. They bribed mayors. They extorted businesses. Illegal casinos in the back. You've seen Harlem Nights. Not really a political boss, but you get it. Sweatshops, drugs, murder. You get it, all right? And there he is, the boss of all bosses politically, Boss Tweed. Okay. His office was called Tammany Hall. So if you see a question about Tammany Hall, they talking about Boss Tweed. All right. So moving right along. Again, he controlled the immigrants. I just told the whole story, but there it is again in short form. And outside of the political boss realm, a lot of Americans just simply did not like immigrants. And there is this belief called nativism. You're going to see a lot of isms in this class. Sexism, racism. This one's nativism, okay? If you believe that people born in your country are better than immigrants coming to this country, that's nativism. It also could mean like you don't want immigrants here. You want them to kind of stay out, keep America American type of thing. If that is your view, you're a nativist. Okay. So nativism was hot at the time because, like I said, guys, it's 12,000 foreigners every day coming in. It's going to have some impact on people's opinions. Okay. All right. So all this industry is going to lead in one of the world's greatest economic upticks we've ever seen. That's right, folks. Money in America and business in America is going to boom. It will skyrocket due to industry. And so eventually some of these businesses that open are going to get so big because of industry that they are so rich, they basically have as much money as a government. Either our government or another country's government. But big business are these large industrial scale businesses that have gotten so big it'd be hard to shut them down. Like Walmart, Exxon, Apple, Amazon. I could go on the whole video. Okay. Now I want to tell you this. Historically in America, the biggest enemy of big business is big government. Okay. Big government. And I usually explain it like this. Let's say you're a businessman. You get so rich that no other businessman can tell you what to do. They can't compete with you and they can't outsell you. You're the man. You're number one. You're top dog. Who is the only other group that is bigger than you, that can tell you what to do, that can write a law against you? My friends, that is the government. Big government. Again, typically big businessmen of this time period did not like big government. Okay. They did not like when the government monitored business. They didn't like when the government made rule for business. They didn't like when the government taxed them. But anytime the government forces or uses law against a big business, usually we call this big government. Super important that. Okay. Also, what if your business gets so big that nobody can compete with you? All of a sudden, you're a shoemaker. All of a sudden, nobody else in the country can make shoes anymore because you have outsold them. You have put their business so far in the dirt. You have a monopoly. Mono means one. Okay. And monopoly is when one person or one company runs an entire industry with no competition. This is bad. You, as a customer, you want competition. Okay. We'll talk about why that is later. Okay. But to this day, monopolies are illegal. The government will not allow it. It would make one company too powerful, and it's not fair to the other business owners in the United States. Okay. So if I am a big businessman and I don't like big government, I think that the government should stay out of my business. Don't tell me how to run my business. Worry about yourself. I'm the business leader here. It's mine. I'm going to run it how I see fit. That means that you believe in something called laissez-faire, and it translates loosely to hands off. It's French. but in English translates loosely to hands off. You want the government to take their hands off. You want a hands off approach. So look at the bottom. Big business likes laissez-faire. Big government is not laissez-faire. They do not like it, you might say. Okay? So keep in mind, the word laissez-faire, the laissez-faire attitude, always goes with big business. Okay? Why do you not want monopolies? Why would it be bad if Nike was the only shoe company or Burger King was the only place to get food? Well, here's why. If Burger King was the only place to get food ever, what would they do to the price? That's right, class. They'd raise it up because they know, hey, if he wants to eat tonight, he's got to eat here. All right. If Burger King was the only place to eat, what would happen to the quality, taste, and perfection of the meat? That's right. It would go down. They wouldn't care because they know she's got to eat here tonight or else. Okay. They would only sell one thing. They would raise the price up and they would be sorry because there are no other choices. You have to buy that. But guess what? I come along, I open up Mr. D's Burger, Burger Shack, and all of a sudden I get all their customers because my prices are better, my burgers are better, and I have more burgers on the menu. You see what just happened? So here's why you don't want monopolies. You want competition, not monopolies. You want competition because competition makes prices lower. It gives consumers more choice, and it makes better quality products for consumers. If Pizza Hut puts out an 888 deal, you better believe Pizza Hut will come out that weekend with a 777 deal, okay? Thank you, competition. You just made my prices lower in America. All right? You get it. Moving along, okay? Give me 1 sec, y'all. What can I do for you?
You don't have a key to this boat right now.
No, ma'am. Sorry about that. All right. Do I have a key to Miss Boatwright's room? Well, I don't because I'm not Miss Boatwright. But anyway, let's continue here. All right. So let's talk about how the government stopped monopolies. There's 2 laws that outlawed monopolies. One of those laws is the Sherman Antitrust Act. That's from 1890. And it basically said you can't have monopolies. Okay. There has to be more than one company in an industry to promote competition. Okay. However, nobody followed that law. The government was so corrupt that big businessmen just kind of paid government officials, sometimes maybe even those in the White House, to kind of turn their head the other way. Okay. Now, the real deal Holyfield, the one that is really going to step it up and enforce the Sherman Act, is called the Clayton Act, Clayton Antitrust Act. Okay, strengthen the original promoted competition. All right. Now, on terms of big business, if you were considered to be a good guy, if the newspapers wrote all good stuff about you, if the public loved you, you're donating, you're giving out scholarships, you're a great businessman and a super guy and one heck of a model American, you are a captain of industry. You are a captain of industry. On the other hand, if they didn't like you, your nickname was Robber Baron. Robber Baron. Let's take a look at some of the main names here. The richest ones are Andrew Carnegie and John D. Rockefeller, because everything in the industrial age needed steel and oil. And that's what they sold. Carnegie sold steel. Rockefeller sold oil. They were the 2 richest men in the world at the time, if I'm not mistaken. Could be wrong on that. Do your own research. All right. Standard Oil Company. That's Rockefeller's company. He's considered the world's first millionaire. And again, because of the U.S. dependency on oil, he made a lot of money. But I will tell you that under the table, he's corrupt, guys. Okay. He didn't do paperwork. He did handshakes only. So no paper trail. That way he could change the deal up on you and cheat you out of some money. Okay. But publicly to the public in the papers. He was a philanthropist. He donated, he built libraries, scholarships, all that. But look, this cartoon says it all. Look, that's Rockefeller. He didn't turn Washington, D.C. into an oil refinery. Look at that smoke. It's all oil barrels all over Washington. Look, he got the White House in his hand, sliding money in there. You get it. All right, so Carnegie, same thing, different industry, okay? Railroads that are being built, machines that are being built for factories. All of this stuff requires steel. So Carnegie sold that and made a lot of money back then. Definitely know what the Bessemer process is. It's just something by Henry Bessemer. I don't know the recipe. They mix the steel up different and it makes it cheaper, lighter, stronger. And there's Carnegie. Get it? I just pour money into stuff and things go away. All right, Van, we're actually going to go over some of these businessmen. But I do want y'all to just be very aware of corruption in big business. Okay, if you are the head of a corporation or you are in a position of power and you illegally use that position to help yourself or help somebody else, you're corrupt. Okay. If I'm the mayor and I let some policemen get away with, a scandal, okay? If I let it, I got one. If I'm a teacher and I know something bad in the school is happening, but I just turn my head and I don't say anything, in a way, I'm corrupt. Okay, if I'm Denzel Washington in Training Day, I'm a cop, but I'm stealing folks' money, stealing their weed, smoking it, bribing people, extorting people. I'm a cop, but I'm using that power against those folks. I'm corrupt. Okay, nearly all the big businessmen in this time period were corrupt. I will let you pause the video here if you want to. You can kind of read these things on your own, but for time's sake, we'll continue. Rockefeller was one of the worst. Don't have the evidence here, but they say he would dynamite other oil companies. I don't know. This is hearsay. Do your own research. But it is true that he undercut. He made his prices so cheap that no matter what, no other oil companies could compete with him. Okay. Also, no paperwork, handshakes only. Okay. And you get the general idea. So we're getting close to the end of industry here. We will continue, and we want to take this time to identify the difference between vertical integration and horizontal integration. All right. For vertical integration, all that means is that the company owns every piece of production from the bottom to the top. Take McDonald's, for example. That burger doesn't just appear like magic at McDonald's, okay? It starts with a cow eating grass on a farm, who gets on a truck, who goes to a butcher shop, who goes to a freezer house, who goes on another truck, who goes to McDonald's, okay? You get the idea. Guess what, folks? McDonald's owns every step I just named. They own the grass, the farm, the cow, the trucks, the warehouse. Every step of the way it takes to get that burger in your mouth, McDonald's owns it. And that is called vertical integration. They even own the property on the highway where the restaurant sits. Mr. Golden told me about that. Okay, he knows a lot about real estate law, by the way. Look him up. The other one's horizontal integration. And rather than buying all stages of production, you just buy out your companies. It's almost like a legal monopoly. And I'm filming this in 2023, so I don't know when you're watching this. But right now, the biggest example I can think of is Disney. Disney Corporation has recently bought out Pixar, Fox, Marvel, ABC, and other competitors. Hey, y'all come on in. I'm just filming and we're going to get started in a minute. Yes, come on. But I got to get back to filming. I'm rolling right now, so excuse me. I just had some lovely ladies and one of my best students come in, Marcus Beckworth, little Miss Hinton. She's from Biloxi, and Kennedy Rash. Y'all know them. So if you don't look them up, there's some fine young individuals. But like I was saying, Disney is, I'm filming this in 2023, so I don't know when you're watching this video, but Disney recently bought out these companies that are on the screen. All right. I'll put this up. You can pause the video right here to examine this chart if you want, but I have to continue. We're already at 30 minutes on the video. Okay, so let's skip over that. We know laissez-faire. We should know what that is. We know what labor unions are. Two notable labor unions during the industrial age. You have the Knights of Labor and the American Federation of Labor. The difference was skilled and unskilled laborers. You'll usually see that on the test. And one of the most important historical chapters for labor unions class is the Haymarket Square riot. If you joined a labor union, that was a good thing. You're fighting for your rights. You're going against corruption. You're helping the little guy. But look, after the Haymarket Square riot, a lot of people weren't cool with labor unions. It gave them a really bad name. For example, well, here's what happened, basically. There were some protesters, a labor union who was protesting in Haymarket Square in Chicago. And because of this protest, thank you, honey, it turned violent. Okay, some police officers got involved. There was a little struggle, a tussle there. And I don't know who threw what, but a firebomb was thrown into the crowd. Some police officers were killed. So the next day, what do y'all think the newspapers wrote about labor unions? Nothing good. You know, thugs kill police officers. You know, radical terrorist group kills police officers. So kind of overnight, you know, labor unions just kind of weren't cool. You know what I'm saying? All right. Now, speaking of labor unions, big business, government disputes, you also need to take the time, class, to know what a strike is. If you go on strike, you don't go to work, or you show up to work outside the building, okay, but you don't go in, you protest, okay, and you say, I'm not going back to work until we get our demands met, all right? Sounds good, right? Audience, did you know that the government can make you go back to work? Did you know that? Oh, no, what? Here in America, I'm free, Mr. Daniel. What are you talking about, man? It is true. I will tell you the story. And it has happened as recently as Ronald Reagan in the 80s. So I am referring to the Pullman strike. Okay, they were a railroad company. And long story short, this is what happened. They went on strike, and the government got mad because it disrupted mail and business. People could not do business across the country. People couldn't send mail. So the government said, you know what? I'm the government. I'm in charge. I'm going to show y'all something about big government, and I'm forcing you to go back to work. That's right. The government used a court injunction, told these people there will be legal consequences if you don't go back to work. So what do you think happened? Did they take jail, or did they feed their family? All right, so it is what it is. Same thing happened in 1902, only this time it was a coal company. And the miners won. They actually did get what they wanted. They got an increase in pay and a shorter workday. So the Pullman strike is the one you mostly see, and that's the story. Look for the word injunction when you see that question, okay? You got to be in person for the good stuff, so we'll skip that. All right, now, keep in mind, we talked about the Wild West a couple of sessions ago, but that was the same time period as this. I was just saying this is what was happening in the West, okay? We've been talking about what's going on in the Northeast this unit, but let's flip it back to the West a minute. Just don't forget that there's also an immigration boom on the West Coast, just like the Northeast. But that boom is Asian. They are coming from China mostly, okay? Whereas on your Northeast immigrants were mostly coming from Europe, okay? And again, on the West Coast, you're coming, if you're Asian, if you are Pacific Islander and you're immigrating, 9 out of 10, there's a 99% chance you're trying to work on the railroad or in a gold mine. Those were the two hot jobs, okay? Now, sad chapter of history here, but I'll illustrate for you. The government also didn't like all of the Asian immigrants coming in. At some point, they said we had too many. They might be taking over. Oh, kind of xenophobic, right? We talked about that term earlier. But the U.S. government produced something called the Chinese Exclusion Act. And what this did was deny all Chinese people entry to the U.S. We literally said, there are too many of y'all here. No more of y'all can come in. Sounds like xenophobia in today's world. But again, we're living in different cultures back in this time. 1882 was wildly different from what me and you know. Heck, my 2006 is different from 2023. Okay, so nonetheless, I'm telling you, due to things like this, there was some xenophobia, there were some nativist sentiments, there were some anti-immigration beliefs. Okay, and again, don't forget that on the West Coast, the entry point for these Asian immigrants was Angel Island. Okay, which is right here on the California coast, and up here in the Northeast, that is Ellis Island. That is where the European workers went. Okay, so just some more terms for the Gilded Age. These are just all people terms and just general knowledge. So again, you may pause the video at this time if you like, but I have to continue. Okay, same thing with this screen. Okay, I will let you pause here. These are just simply industrial figures, I guess you could say, or important figures at the time. I know y'all know this one. Thomas Edison invented the light bulb. Now, I will stop to explain this because these are two very important concepts to the Gilded Age. All right, y'all should know who Charles Darwin is. If you don't, he is the guy who studied, discovered, and coined evolution. He discovered that over time, species of animals change depending on the environment. Things shape them. If you're a bird and you live on an island full of nuts, better have a hard beak because you ain't eating if you got a soft beak. You can't crack the shell. Okay, you get it. All right. So survival of the fittest, right? Social Darwinism is the belief of survival of the fittest, just like that island, but for businesses. Okay. Can't have a soft business in this world. If your business fails, it's your own fault. Okay, this is kind of like a negative, usually big business people who don't feel sorry for you, view you through social Darwinism. They see you poor and hungry. Oh, well, that's his fault. Get like me. Maybe you should do what I did, start a business. Not everybody can do that. Okay. However, the positive belief that counteracts this one is called gospel of the wealth. Audience, I don't know your religious beliefs, and I really don't care. But back then, all kind of people in America were Christian. They were real super duper spiritual. Like they really believed all of that stuff, Christianity as a good baseline for life. And so the gospel, which is a religious term, is the belief that, look, if you're rich, what would Jesus do? If you're rich and you got it like that, God wants you to share it with the less fortunate. It's the Christian thing to do. Gospel of the wealth. So again, we talk about opposites, things that contrast right here. Feel free to pause this screen. All right. And in fact, that's the last screen. So we're at 37 minutes, roughly 38. And class, I will see y'all in the next video.